it's Fellonius. I am driving in the Euro Truck Simulator 2. And I'm in Sweden at the moment. I am heading for Västerås. And that's actually the city where my son lives. But this is not an ordinary Let's Play or whatever you call it. This is going to be something of a special one. You see, the first time I got hold of this game and end number 1, I thought of a trucker story that I heard of. And perhaps I shouldn't tell the story, perhaps it shouldn't be told, but it's so interesting in so many levels, even if I don't know all the details, that I think it should be. It would probably be a bad call not telling it. I probably will cry, but never mind that. Now I'm going to do so that I tell this story to my son. So if you're not feeling like you are my son, well, never mind. It's not that big deal. So here it goes. This trucker is a big a-hole. He was a real pain in the neck for many people. So he's not a nice man, he's not a good man. It starts in mid-60s. I'm not totally sure what date or year even, but 65, 67 somewhere. This trucker is actually from Sweden, but he drives in Northern Europe. He's really doing what I've been doing. Oops, I should suddenly turn. And he was going to all these exotic places, Belgium, the Netherlands, Czechoslovakia, even East Germany. So he were all over the place, and he was away a fortnight. And then he came home, and back home he had a wife who worked like a housewife, and he got 3 boys. 3 kids. They're all boys. Different ages. Whoops. Didn't want me to get out there. He was happy out on the road. He was really happy out on the road. He wanted to be on the road. And when he got home, well, he was home for like a week. He started to booze, drank heavily, smoked. And in the beginning it was interesting, they said, because he tells stories. But the more alcohol he got, the more he started to beat his wife, beat his kids, become a nuisance. And then he's off to work 14 days again. And that's okay. But that can't be forever. In the end of the 60s, he suddenly lost his job. I am pretty sure it had nothing to do with alcohol. I'm going to succeed in this, am I? Nope. It has nothing to do with alcohol, as far as I know. Again, I might be wrong. But that's how the story goes, anyway. Whoa, wrong way. Good. And I have a note here so I can read from it. But the brother of his employer felt sorry for him. Now that brother lived like 150 kilometers way up north. Well, it's not that far actually, but still, it was up north. So the whole family had to move, and they had to find a new place to live and all that. Well, that's no big deal. Change of school, of course, for I think 2 of the kids. The oldest one actually managed to get a job when he was coming up. I'm not totally sure. Nevertheless, it was moving time. And he was away perhaps 1, perhaps 2 days, and then he was back home again. So boozing wasn't an option until it was weekend, and well, he didn't get that much drinking done, I suppose. So the kids were actually rather pleased at that point. I can tell you that much. Oops, wrong one. But he was unhappy. He was very unhappy. Still, he beat his wife now and then. And then the next thing happened. His wife got sick. Just after being moved again to another home and another house and another job, the trucker's wife got really ill. It was a real heavy sickness. And it is believed, though not that I know it is proven, that it was his beating that actually made her sick. There's no proof of it, so I'm not going to put anything on that either. But who knows? Because he had a bad conscience about this. He didn't feel good about it at all. And he started to find institutions to put her and help her get well. Suddenly he wasn't that a-hole that he was just before. And but that didn't help. After a while, they realized that the sickness, the disease, was incurable, nothing to do about it, and now he felt suddenly sorry for his own situation. His, not their, not the family, no nothing. So he started to find a way to get rid of his wife. He succeeded in getting her into an asylum, where she spent the next 15 years. Not the thing you would think about it, but still. He still had trucker jobs, so he was doing fine, but they were not good trucker jobs. And then he found a new woman. And as soon as he found that woman, he divorced his wife. Didn't tell his kids. And then he remarried the new woman, and I think the youngest one knew about it, the other two didn't. Not until 3 years afterwards, or something like that. And now he was happy. Yeah, up to a point. Yeah. Let's see what is it. Because suddenly he got ill himself. He had, because of the drinking and the fat food and all that, he had very bad, low blood. He had very bad blood. I think he went through, I'm not totally sure, but I think it was 8 blood transfusions in a very short while. It didn't go well, of course not. And then he got, I had to look this one up. It's called KOL in Swedish, but in English it's COPD, and it has to do with smoking. And that means that his lungs were, they weren't much to talk about. Oops. So, he got really ill. He couldn't job anymore. And despite moving away from his family to healthier locations by the sea, he didn't have to drive a truck anymore. And it is said, and I'm not totally sure about this, but it is from the woman's brother, so it might be true. If he hadn't had his new wife, he wouldn't have been turning 60. He became 78. That's good. He died alone except for his wife. And he's buried somewhere. The kids don't know, mainly because one of them was actually already dead of the same sickness as his mother, and the other one was sick in the sickness of his mother. And the third one he heard that it was going to be a funeral. He had 4 days to fix it. He didn't bother. At that time, the kids didn't have a father, At least not what they said. He didn't leave anything else but grief and resentment anyway, so it's really, yeah, no one knows where he is, and no one's wondering, actually. At least I got the photo album that he said that he had thrown. Darn father. Yes, my son. It is your grandfather I'm talking about. I'm not totally sure how much you have been thinking about my side of the family. Your grandmother died like 6 years ahead of your birth. You have met your grandfather a couple of times, but he's denying that he has a blood-related grandson. His new family's family is his grandchildren, he says. And, well, that's his business. But don't hate him. I mean, thanks to my father's sister, Aunt C, her husband, called B told me some things and gave me information about the time before this story started. And to be totally honest, well, I don't know if I'm totally correct because I guess a lot. But according to what B says, there is a reason. I've always thought that it has to be a reason somewhere. Because people don't get born an a-hole. Not that I know of. You might think so, but no. So, this is what I found out. The true story actually starts back in 1951. My father is 21 years old, exactly the same as you are nowadays. And he had met my mother, and she's pregnant, and they are going to have a girl. And my grandmother was a very strong woman. She's not from our place at all. She's from another stuff. But still, she's a very strong woman. At this time, just before my father and mother's going to be married, my grandmother divorced grandfather. Back in those days, it wasn't easy to get a divorce. But my grandfather, well, he drank a lot, and he spent all the money that they got on different stuff. First of all, my father was much alike his father, in that respect and in many others. So she's got a divorce. Now, that, I'm not totally sure how my father did react to that, but think of it. There you stand, you have a kid in the oven, you're going to start a family, you are going to marry a girl for the first time in your life, of course, because yes. And suddenly your father can't keep his marriage alive. What do you do? How do you think? As I said, I'm not totally sure that I know how my father reacted to this, but something tells me that he snapped. Now, according to me, my granny was a strong woman. She pulled it all together. Despite the divorce, the marriage went through. And, yeah, it should be okay. Then the next disaster strikes. My mother gets a miscarriage. The baby dies. And I don't get a sister. And now suddenly my father is standing there with a marriage that suddenly he doesn't need, and not the family attachment that was earlier attached to it. And still his father, is having a ball. Probably boozing as much as he can. At this point, my father is driving taxis, I think, mostly. Taxis and buses. Yeah, me being a bus driver, yeah, all that. But, again, Granny, my grandmother, made sure that he stayed on the right track, and soon enough there were a baby boy born. My big brother. And according to what I could gather, my father and mother were happy. They were happy during those years. And then it's time for me, and it's my birth. That summer, grandfather dies. The person that my father had looked up to, had as a role model, very bad one still, but anyway, his role model dies. And somehow I think my father felt cheated for this. Let's see. Where are we? And I think my father started to plan, I don't know, a restart perhaps, not totally sure. But still, when the next kid, my little brother, comes, we are moving south. We are moving 600 kilometers away. I think 600. And my father gets a job driving the continent. And he's happy again. And he's out of the claws of his mother. Now, I'm not totally sure when my grandmother died, 65 or 67. We were to the funeral, but we were not allowed to come to the church, me and my little brother. But still, we went up there. And that was the last person to have any control over my father. Now, given the situations that my father get to, you do what you have to do. I think my father used to think like, family is bad and will only give you sadness. Like that. The moment Grandma died, I think my father snapped. He didn't want his family anymore. That's why he beat us. That's why he beat his wife, my mother. He was only happy when he was alone on the road. And that is a bit of a trucker's hell. You don't really get attached to people when you are alone on the road. He was called the cord, actually. And in Swedish, that also means that's called sladden. And slud is also a skid. And me and my brothers, we thought that our father had skidded with a truck, because his stories was often filled with that type of information. But I have realized, thanks to B, that it wasn't his stories. He had taken those stories. He was the cord. He was hanging after the big guys, listening to them and stealing their stories. And when I realized that, I also realized that my father wasn't the best role model in the world. Thanks to my father, I would say that I decided to do the absolute opposite. Anything he did, I would not do. I have actively worked for this, because I feel like it's what we should do. And I've tried to be the best father I can be. Well, whatever I see that I think I've succeeded. I'm so proud of you. So, well, I can't get the words out. And I always will be. And that's something that also differs me from my a-hole father. But still, remember one thing. Anything, you become all the parts that surrounds you. If it's the environment, the family, the friends, or jobs, everything. They form you and get you where you are. My father became an a-hole because Well, he thought he did the right thing, but he didn't. His father was also an a-hole, and my grandfather was a half brother, so he had perhaps had problems with his siblings when he was young. Why do I know? It's the late 1800s. And I can forgive my father now. Yes, he made a lot of wrong decisions, but with the background and the facts that we know, my guess is that he would have done it anyway. Even if he had a chance to relive it, he made those decisions from what he thought was right at the time. We now know that it was all wrong, and that life treated him, badly, sort of. Bad karma? I don't know. But I've also done mistakes. I've also made many mistakes, based on what I thought was right. You will do the same. We all do. I don't know. I'm not one to take something from Star Trek, but live and learn and prosper. Yeah. I'm going towards Westeros. Let's take a pizza at Moe's, right? Thanks for watching. Bye.